when it comes to something like piloting planes and DEI, which has come up a bunch lately, what it made me feel like is if it's a problem that all pilots are white and male and not enough pilots are female or of colour, when you're solving that problem, you've got to solve it as far away from the job as possible, not as near to the job as possible. It shouldn't be solved right at the last minute. Right, we're going to start hiring more women, like, because the standards of being a pilot have to be absolute standards. They have to be. But if you've noticed that because of trauma and cultural and civilizational and all sorts of various issues, there's some kind of imbalance, and if you think that one way of making society better is balance, and that's its own question, because, you know, is it better? I don't know. Is it better if we have more black pilots or more women pilots? I don't know. I don't know if that's an absolute metric for good versus evil. The number of pilots that have got breasts or different type of skin pigment. I don't know. I can think of lots of ways of measuring good versus bad, and even the idea of justice, actually. But anyway, if you wanted to target that as an issue, then it should be dealt with far away from the problem, right when kids are being educated, when kids are being born. And then look at how the culture tries to address that problem by creating more hatred and more confusion, not by reaching out in love. And I wonder what you think about these various arguments as a Christian, because it seems to me that, in a way, these issues are once again the state claiming God's authority, i.e. the right to distribute justice. Now, that is one of the things apparently we look to the state for. You know, the Supreme Court and the judiciary is one of the branches of government. But no one can do it, as we've touched upon already, Lecrae, without God. Unless you're like, there's a God and God has told us that. Otherwise, you're just a bunch of human beings aggregating consensus, and you're fallen and you're broken and you'll mess it up without God. I wonder what you think about some of them attempts, DEI among them, to sort of address issues like justice.
As it pertains to us in society, when you think about a DEI, you think about all of these agendas that, and these terms in society, as soon as you say certain words, people begin to think, nope, that means I have to wrestle too hard to figure out what it means. What do you say it means? It means bad. I don't like it. I'm done. Mm-hmm. Or it means people are going to be taken care of. I like it. I'm with it. And it's overly simplified on both ends of the spectrum to where it's either a very bad word and we don't want anything to do with it, or it means I'm going to be taken care of and I appreciate it. When the reality is there's way more nuance that has to be in play when you're navigating something like a DEI, right? So if you're saying, hey, we don't have enough African Americans at Harvard, right? There's not enough of them at Harvard. Okay, based off of what? What are the metrics? Where are we basing this off of? If the reality is that there's not enough because the scores are not high enough in the African American community to get into Harvard, then we can't just say, well, that's it. The scores aren't high enough and we're done. Well, why aren't the scores high enough? Why are they not high? Well, because these schools that they're learning from are not up to par. Okay, that's it. We're done. The schools aren't good enough. No. Why aren't these schools? Is this not America? Right? Is this not don't we all have access? So why aren't these schools as good? So let's dive in there. Oh, well, because they don't have the same funds as this school in this community. Oh, okay. So they don't have the funds to give the proper type of education. Well, why don't they have the funds? Is this not a state federally funded educational system? What is the issue? So that's what I'm saying, where you're going to have to start drilling down and figuring out the nuance as to why some of these particular things aren't happening. And then you address it so that you can fix the greater problem. Again, I'm not an expert in any of these particular categories, so don't hear me saying, and there is DEI, ladies and gentlemen, I'm done. I'm more than anything, I'm saying that there's nuance involved, and I think we can't just write it off as it's bad or it's the only way. I think that there has to be a wrestling and understanding as to why things are the way that they are. And, at the same time, and this is going to sound very, I risk sounding like I'm, Uncle Tom, step and fetch it, like I don't care about Black culture when I say this, but a lot of times I think that, as a Black American myself, I have to ask myself, is the equality that I'm asking for, is that the equality that Martin Luther King wanted, or is that the equality that my sinful desires want? Right? Like, that's what I have to ask myself, because there's equality that I think is standard, but there's also, like, the question I got to ask myself, like the Bible says, do not stress yourself out to be rich. And so I'm asking myself, well, why aren't there Black Elon Musks? Shoot, what do I need to do to be, and am I, and I watch, Kanye melt down because he's not able to, and I'm like, but what is that about? Is that an equality issue, or is that a heart issue that we're chasing? I'm all for equality, but I'm also like, wait a minute, but wait, what are we what is the level of equality that we're trying to chase? Do I want, things that are detrimental for me for the sake of equality, or do I want what God has for me? And again, I'm not saying we don't fight for treating each other equally, but at the end of the day, that should be a biblical mandate, not a legislated mandate, as far as I'm concerned.
Brilliant. If it's a legislative mandate, then it's just a concoction based on potentially transient and potentially corrupted and even sinful edicts and decrees. Absolutely. Rather than absolute decrees. The government's running on caffeine and corruption. Don't let your morning fuel be just as weak. 1775 coffee is roasted for rebels, revolutionaries, and anyone who thinks their coffee should taste like freedom, not like the tears of an overpaid diversity consultant. Dark roast, it hits harder than a tax audit. Medium roast, smoother than the excuses they give you when inflation spikes again. Vitality mushroom blend fuels your brain like you just figured out they're lying to you. Hand-picked single origin beans roasted fresh in Myamsky, because your coffee should be fresher than whatever nonsense they're selling on the news today.
You can smell it.
And if bold flavor and non-compromising quality weren't enough, every dollar you spend enters you to win a Cybertruck and 30 grand in cash. That's right, free coffee, free truck, free money. Almost makes you feel like a politician, except this deal actually benefits you. I'm driving around in that Cybertruck. If you see me pass, I will take you anywhere within a 15-minute radius. I'm Cybertrucking around. I can't endorse absolutely every slogan on it, but most of them I wholeheartedly agree with. So if you want a near deadly cup of coffee and a lethal Cybertruck, make sure you're near a charging station when you use those things. Then go to 1775coffee.com, use the code BRAND for 15% off, and start your day like a real patriot with coffee that stands for something and refuses to sell for weak beans or weak leaders. So we keep coming around this point, even when tackling the obviously by definition complex subject of nuance itself, coming back to what are the virtues that are underwriting your categorization. I thought it was pretty good that towards the end of that you brought up, like, say, Musk and Kanye, sort of Musk as this obvious example of excellence and high achievement, and Kanye the same, except for how Kanye's obviously a person that's struggling with a bunch of stuff. Now, near the beginning, I use the analogy of pilots because I felt like it was an area where the requirement for excellence, or at least competence, is obvious, but the standard is not so high that you're dealing with such a small percentile of the population that, you were dealing with extreme and particular genetics rather than broad and general genetics. This filmmaker, Albert Maysles, once said that tyranny is the deliberate removal of nuance, like refusing to acknowledge complexity and just simplifying it to this or that. I liked it when I tried to put it this way, of saying that with the pilots, that if you want to address the issue of diversity or variety when it comes to pilots of airlines, address that problem as far as possible from the cockpit. And you sort of almost one by one with the Harvard example, why aren't they getting entry scores if it was African Americans, say? Well, why are their schools not good enough? Well, why is the funding not? You keep asking why. This is the kind of thing that I thought that, when we touched upon the idea that Christianity weren't smart. That's what I thought we were dealing with. Stop asking why. But I think as a Christian, like Martin Luther King did, you can keep going, why, right the way up to the Supreme Court, right the way into the Oval Office. There's probably no one that thinks that Martin Luther King shouldn't have been a president. That's the kind of leader you want. Having said that, people go digging around in his grave now, trying to find ways that he weren't perfect because, oh, guess what? He was a human being, and like you and like me, he was fooled and just doing his best. And if Martin Luther King ain't good enough, God help the rest of us. But the reason that I think that the Harvard thing is troubling is because Harvard probably functions in the culture as a symbol of excellence in ways that might not even be real, anymore. It might be like a symbol sort of thing, and like the preservation of that symbol or what that symbol represents. Why don't we just have loads of like black kids come to Harvard? I don't know where, it's very difficult to work out what is Harvard, what does Harvard represent, what does Harvard mean? We know that it, at first glance, it represents excellence, elitism, and the highest possible standards of education. That's what it, at a glance, but does it really mean that? And I guess what it is Lecrae, is that like we have the complex tension we have to inhabit is like that somehow you personally, I mean in this case literally you, have to wrestle with like, well, what does that mean, African American or black, if it wasn't American or African, Elon Musk's, and what does it mean to heal Kanye, and why did Kanye go off track? And probably those are two areas where you personally would be in a position to make an impact or explore. And then for me, I think like, how do I, as a person who's sort of been right at the heart of the culture, seen that the culture is deceptive and hypocritical, gotten kicked out of culture for like a bunch of reasons, how do I now ensure that I don't get lazy with the stuff that I know I do? I don't like, if someone shows me the demographics for a prison population of my country or your country or any country, and there seem to be factors other than these are the people that did the crimes, then you got to, why? But the thing is none of us has the authority to go up against that power, whether it's dark power in principalities, unless we're backed up by the cross, unless we're backed up by Jesus. Like you said, we could be just going there as like, I might benefit from this. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.